Well, hello there. My name is Louis the Frenchie Manette. You are obviously watching Ready, Set, Multiplex. Look, I'm an old schmuck. I'm getting a year older today, so won't be me covering the match and the shows. But look, we have Necro versus Mischief managed for the team's Phantom title match. We got two people from there just for you today. Like I said, I'm gone. I'm gonna go drink, probably smoke, not remember my whole night, and it will be my man, Mr. Dave Lees, covering for me. Now, and we have two of the players that were right in the action of the match. First off, it is our second place finisher, Jay, one half of Necro, and we got the new champion of teams champion of Fandom, Mr. Scully. All right. So look, Dave is gonna take it over. Thank you very much for covering for my birthday. I'll drink one just for you, sir. All right. Have fun.
Place finisher in the team's Fandom event. How are you feeling today?
Oh man, you know what? I can't like I'm gonna hang my head a little bit, but that's the way it goes. Sometimes you study for everything, sometimes you don't. Shout out to Lou. Wish he could have been here to do that interview. I know he really wanted to be, and happy belated birthday.
Talk to me a little bit about your current team on Necronomicon. Just talk to me about your partnership, how that came together, and what your guys' path has been. Because obviously you guys have had some great matches this year's in particular.
So me and Mark Aiden Kmeyer make up Necronomicon. We are also Con of the Dead and regular movie trivia. But our first match was against the Viking Raiders, which was Matt Graham and Jacob E. West. That's why I got his name confused. That was a TKO. They stumbled. We didn't really at that point. Then we played Adelaide Spence and Ruben Colin. That was actually a really fun match. That was tighter than I thought it would have been. Ruben came to play. Adelaide, not so much. I love them. Don't get me wrong. We're gonna link up here in a little bit at the free for all, as a matter of fact. So. Like we're all buddy there. Ruben's helped me study sometimes. Me and Mark kind of came together, and I want to get into this before we get into the nick of time between Tuig and Carly. Me and Mark came together because TMG had this random trivia tournament that they were doing for Marvel. And it happened to be a debate thing, but in order to get into it, you had to answer like trivia questions, which don't ask me why that's a thing. It is. I'm not the one who runs it. I just was asked to ask questions. And Mark went like 19 of 20 questions deep in Marvel trivia. And I'd met him once before in a Full Metal Classic. And I was just like, you're really good at like the stuff I'm really bad at, but I'm really good at the stuff that you're kind of bad at. If we came together, we'd probably make a team that balances each other out a lot more than most teams do. And this was back before most teams were looking for like a meta, like we have a heavy, we have a support, we have somebody who knows everything, and we have somebody who knows all of the fringe, and they can kind of balance each other out. We're really both fantastic when it comes to core geek stuff. He's better at some of the fringe than I am, but at the other, when it swings the other way, and we're talking about some of the other fringe categories, like he's got like Bond and YA Dystopia, he's getting down. I've done the deep dive on Planet of the Apes and whatnot, but like I've got Disney and Pixar, unless it's Disney songs. Don't get me wrong, I fucking hate Disney songs. It's just because I can't remember the names of them. But that's really what it comes down to, is we just balanced each other out as a decent team. And Lewis has said it best. You know, you and Lewis have both said it. If we trust each other just a little bit more, you know, we have a team dynamic and we're always trying to work on it. But if we trusted each other a little bit more, there are certain times where, yeah, had we just gone with the other person's gut, the outcome of a match might be a little bit different. But getting into Nick of Time, playing Nick of Time was my favorite match. I love Tuig and Carly. They are like one of my favorite combos of all time. Nick Tuig is a beast when it comes to Middle Earth. We kind of screwed up by giving him and Carly Middle Earth, but the fact that they had to go to multiple choice as much as they did, and we knew the answers to every single one of their questions, really helped. Then we played a team that's not going to be named because one of the people doesn't technically exist in the sphere anymore, but they happened to be teamed up with Nico Suave Rigoli. It was one of our worst matches, as a matter of fact, but it came down to Star Wars. Our final question was Star Wars, and we didn't have to bet anything, which was fantastic. Then we played Arkham Knights, which no longer exists, and this was our first loss. You know, I thought about it, and I look at it like this: if I go back and I'll watch every team's match and figure out who the weakest player on the team is, and all we have to do is play better than that one person. If we can both play better than that singular person, 9 times out of 10 we will win. It happened that I got 8 points in that first round, or 7 points in that first round, and Mark only came up with like 4. So we were down quite a bit in that match. And finding Dory, it's one of them things, man. Finding Dory, it hurts. I went back after we lost that match. I went home that night, grabbed a 6-pack, and watched Finding Dory twice.
That is good for you. Good for you. You're a braver man than I am.
I love that movie. I love, shout out to Tony Hield and the fantasy film fights that they just did for best Pixar characters. And shout out to Thomas Scully for choosing Dory. But coming back into it this season after that loss, we'd kind of hit the books a little bit harder. We stumbled out of the gate playing 80s, and I've always had this running grudge. It's the joke because I love Sandy so much. He's a fantastic person, and he's a fantastic player, especially when it comes to the geek thing. So that was really our toughest match, because that was almost everything in our wheelhouse, and we still almost lost it. His mess up on Chekhov versus Scotty hanging out with Jayla, or being the first person that Jayla finds, really was like that. We're going to jump on this. They messed up. They're going to be in their own heads about this. We're going to go ahead and just roll with that momentum, steal this point. And really it came down to the fact that they'd messed up on the lettering for the when did James T. Kirk go missing in their next question, and they listed off a whole bunch of numbers. I hate numbers questions. Sandy hates numbers questions. Jeremy hates numbers questions. Mark hates numbers questions. So it's like, well, if he disappeared in the 24th century, it's got to be the 2300s, right? I'm not wrong on this. And I wasn't. It was literally just that. We stole 3 points from him right there, and the match came down. Mischief managed. I love them. I'll say this a lot. I love these guys, man. Caleb Coho as their manager is fantastic. He's got this attitude, this ability to just sit there and talk and kind of get under your skin. And Thomas is a troll in the best sense of the word. He will literally just say shit. Even if he doesn't believe it, he'll just say it to fuck with you. And Boatman's kind of picking that up too. Boatman's been showing a little bit more of a heelish tendency as time goes on in the fan leagues. But Boatman, I have played multiple times over multiple different leagues and multiple different matches, and he's almost always had me. The only time that hasn't been the case is when it comes to something like Fandom, where usually I'm the one who comes out on top. So it wasn't like we were walking in with this false bravado, this false sense of self-confidence. It more along the lines came down to the fact that we were confident that all we had to do was play better than Scully. And that match just wasn't in our wheelhouse. That match was geared towards them. I'm not saying that it was fixed. I don't want that to come across like that at all. But, you know, when you get the more fringe categories, especially in a championship match, they're going to be a little bit more difficult. But if it leans more towards somebody, if it leans more towards one team than the other, it's going to be very apparent. There weren't a whole lot of like core geek questions in that match, and that's the thing I think that did us in. I think that they leaned a little too heavily on that, and it shows if you go back and you rewatch that match, because a lot of it is YA fandom. It's, you know, Planet of the Apes, it's, you know, Pixar, it's everything that's right up their alley, whereas, you know, you don't have a whole lot of DC, you don't have a whole lot of Star Wars, you don't have a whole lot of Star Trek. The core geek didn't get a whole lot of love in that match, and it's sad. They put on a hell of a match. I would be remiss if I did not mention the fact that I know my team partner is salty that we didn't win Fandom Rookie Team of the Year in Multiplex. Personally, I don't take too much in account to that. We had a better record. I think that they played harder teams, and they still lost. Though the team that they lost to, we beat in order to get to the championship match. So like it's a little bit of give and take there, but fandom is where I thrive. Full Metal Geek, the core geek, is more my bread and butter than anything else. But with Disney Plus, it's going to be real simple to try to close all of those gaps, especially with Disney live action, Disney animated, and a lot of the Pixar shit.
Well, that was a great oral history of Jay the Arsonist Burnz and his journey through teams. I was very, very excited. I want to come back on a couple of things that you discussed. Talking about Caleb Coho as a manager, first of all, you yourself have found some success as a manager. Can you speak to me about the difference between being a manager and an active competitor, and what you think you bring to that role?
I think being an active competitor and being a manager are more similar than a lot of people would like to think. A lot of people want to sit here and say, oh, being a manager, it's a little bit more of, you know, a mental game. But if you're managing somebody, you have to know their strengths and their weaknesses versus who they're going up against, and their strengths and their weaknesses. And that's just something that you bring together. That's just common sense. That's common knowledge if you're a player at all, especially if you have to play somebody that, you know, you may or may not be familiar with in its entirety. I don't think, like, I think a lot of people kind of put being a manager, or relegate being a manager, to this higher sense of difficult. I'm not saying that it's easy. I'm saying that a lot of people kind of fall into it a little bit easier than others, and it takes a little bit of an analytical mind to do that. But I mean, if you're going to sit here and you're going to craft a strength for yourself against a team that A, you've never played, or B, you might have played once or twice, you could do the exact same thing, taking a step back, knowing exactly who it is that you're managing, their strengths and their weaknesses. You just got to find that middle ground right there. And you know, Andrew James Barr is fantastic. Kurt Kowalkowski, and you haven't had him on yet, and I really want to see him on as well. But Sean Wasserkrug, I think that would be a hell of a conversation to have. There's always going to be good and bad. There's always going to be give and take. There's always going to be a little bit of a headbutt there. But they're looking at it from their perspective. Basically, what I'm doing is I'm playing 3D chess. I'm looking at it from an outside perspective. I can see your yeses and your no's and their yeses and their no's. And I know what you've missed in matches. I know what they've missed in matches. Your best bet 9 times out of 10, even if you don't like this category, is something that you're leaps and bounds better in than they are. Why not just go with that? Oh, well, I'm more comfortable with this. You're more comfortable with it, but so are they. So if they land on it, they have a better chance of gaining more points. It really is. It's a game of chess. It's a game of checkers portraying itself as a game of chess, but looking at it from the third person or the outside perspective is really where it starts to like show itself as the easy portion of what it is that you're doing. Coho does a really good job at that, because Coho has called himself this, and I will continue to call him this. He is data scum. So he likes a lot of the analytical portions of what it takes to be a player. So like he's really good at like scores and soundtracks, directors, movie release dates, that type of thing. If he can morph that thought process and that ideology for his players against their opponents, it becomes really simple to find patterns and see where you can come in, you can slide in and kind of just like take the upper hand. He does it as a player, he does it as a debater, and he does it as a manager, and I have nothing but respect for him. I think I'm a little bit better as a manager than he is, but that's just me, and I'm biased, so I won't make that claim, but I will totally make that claim.
Championship match in Fandom. I'm going to be going into this a little bit later with the victor of the match later in this episode, so stay tuned for that. But there's a couple key moments I want to talk to you about. Mainly, you've been very vocal about your dislike of Bond, or so I've been told. How did it feel to get saddled with Bond in the second round?
You know what? Okay, so here's the thing. Like, I'll watch movies with Mikey, and I'll watch like everything our cinema wins about movies, especially if I don't have time to cover something that has for Multiplex Fandom, I believe there are 23 movies in Eon canon. And with a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks prep time, I don't have enough time to look or watch all of these movies. So I'll do my best to look for them. I'll go over the basics. I'll do a dive on a Wikipedia page. I'll do a dive on an IMDb page. Look for who sang the song, what year did it come out, who was the director, who was the Bond, all of these monotonous things. But every time I've been saddled with Bond, regardless of whether it was in the Manager Bowl, I actually did pretty well for myself in the Manager Bowl. And it was actually brought up to us. Me and Mark didn't look like we were communicating to each other when it came to round 2. We just looked like we were shouting out we were just shouting out stuff. I'm literally sitting here with my board over my mouth, like, I think it's this, or I think it's this, trying to make sure that, it's in the moment sort of thing. But it's common sense for James Bond. Like, one of the questions was, in Thunderball, blah, 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 what happens to Felix Leiter and James Bond if they lose or they answer a question wrong? And it came down to they're killed, they're electrocuted, they're fed to sharks, or they're beat up. I was like, well, they've already been beaten up. You can't kill James Bond, so those two are taken out of the equation. It kind of comes down to common sense. The Electric King one kind of irritated me because I'd just gone over that, and Kevin Poss, as a matter of fact, was the person who told me that Electric King ultimately ends up being the main bad guy of that film. And I was like, as soon as I heard the multiple choice and I heard Christmas Jones as one of the answers, I was like, they're gonna say Electric King, and boom, there it is. The Mr. White thing comes right down to the fact that I had watched Cinema Wins, and they had done a deconstruction on Casino Royale, and like one of the very last things they say happens to be about Mr. White, and it's we won't see you for another 2 years because you were trapped in a trunk. And then they asked what character was in a trunk that reappears, and I was like, okay, so it's got to be Mr. White. It's things like that. They had an opportunity to steal, they didn't. But Scully has kind of said that he's good in Bond. Boatman's really kind of not. It's still one of those things because there are so many that it's really difficult to like narrow it down. But I think we got 6 of 10 points, 7 of 10 points out of that round. And I mean, that's really nothing to shake your head at, especially in a championship match with championship level questions. Yeah, I don't like Bond. I don't think Bond is a Fandom category. Nobody dresses up as James Bond. More people dress up as Austin Powers. More people dress up as Eggsy from Kingsman. But it's one of those challenges. It's not a wrench or anything in anybody's training strategy. It's just one of those mountains that people have to be able to climb up in order to reach the top, especially if they want to reach the top.
And you are a person who has been near the top a lot. What are your aspirations with Necro and yourself as you progress through Multiplex this season?
Legitimately, what it comes down to is everybody's gunning for that championship spot. I will let you in a little peek behind the curtain, though. If you win the championship, you play it max twice a year. Why? We can collect all of the accolades with the exception of, cool, we have the belts. We get to play 2 or 3 times more than you do every year if you win the belts. I would rather continue to play throughout the year than sit and stagnate. Yes, it would give us a little bit more time to cover things like Bond, but we're still covering bases by functionally being out there and playing matches instead of just studying with each other. That's not to take away from the fact that me and Mark as Necro are still gunning for those titles. We will definitely be there for them. When it comes to myself in singles, I'm not as fully confident in myself as I should be because I know a lot of certain, I know certain answers. And when I bet like 0 or I bet 1 and I know the answer, I'm beating myself up. But that's it's kind of the hidden dagger when it comes to like a betting round. Perfect example. Necro versus Nick of Time. We bet 0 and I bet 0 in James Bond because I didn't want to lose us any points. And it was basically who played Q after Desmond Llewellyn had died. And I was like, shit, it's John Cleese. We bet 0, should have bet 2, knew it, but it's a part of the strategy. And sometimes even your, what is it? All battle strategies fall apart as soon as the first arrow is loosed. The road to hell is paved with good intentions.
Everyone's got a plan until they get punched in the mouth.
Everybody's got a plan until the first bullet's fired. Yes.
So is there a specific belt that you as a single interested in pursuing throughout this the rest of the season?
I mean, teams and Multiplex 1000%, not regular movies, but definitely fandom fights, team titles. I think if me and Mark got if the wheel had just that second spin that still landed on Rocky, we had literally studied for everything but Rocky. I think the outcome could have been a little bit different. We still would have been down. Had round 3 been swapped, we would have gotten them all. I knew Domhnall Gleeson. I knew Mark's. I didn't know mine in the first round, but I knew all 3 of their IMDb questions, whereas it seemed like they kind of knew ours. Had that just been swapped around a little bit, had we not landed on Rocky 3, it would have been one thing. To answer your question, to go back to what you were asking, no, I don't see myself as a heel, and no, I don't really see myself as a face, but I also don't really see myself as a tweener because this isn't something that I'm trying to do. This is literally just a larger version of who I am as an individual, and I think that that's where a lot of people get lost in the quote unquote characters that they're trying to portray. They're trying to go against type, or they're trying to do a little bit too much. Whereas, I might have lost in a cool guy poll for personalities in the league. My personality shines through regardless. People know my name, whether they love me or whether they hate me. I didn't know about you guys until about 2.5, 3 weeks ago. And I love you guys. I love everything it is that you guys are doing. You guys have spoken nothing but high. Well, you kind of spoken a little high, a little low of me. That's completely fine. Yeah, Lewis.
We're just analysts here. We're just analysts.
And that's completely fine. I've got people on my side. I've got people who really don't like me. But the what it comes right down to is the fact that I'm great friends with almost everybody I play against outside of green rooms and outside of character storyline bullshit. I get along with a lot of people, and I was that kid, and to extend the interview just a little bit, to give a little bit more of a peek behind the curtain. That's the type of person that I've always been. even in high school, even in middle school, in college, even I got along with everybody. Even if people from like I was a goth, I was a cool kid, I played football, so I was a jock. I was a big old fucking nerd in school. Like, so I rotated sitting with groups of people at lunches and shit until I was like, hey, I think, you guys would get along with this person, and you would get along with this person, and you would get along with this person. I always just try to bring people together, regardless of whether that's what people see in me. That's what I try to do. And that's one of the reasons really, like a lot of people get butthurt when they play characters and somebody says something negative about them. If somebody has something to say negatively about my character, 9 times out of 10, they'll say it to my face, and I don't have a problem with it. I'm not this type of person who's going to overly feel bad about somebody not liking what it is that I'm putting forth. But there are too many people out there who stake their reputations and their lives on being recognized as this one type of person. It's why I end all of my Full Metal Classics on be the person Mr. Rogers knows you can be. It doesn't matter what walk of life you come from, you can be a good person, whether people think you are or not. And I think that not enough people take that into consideration. You can be a heel, you can be a dick, but you can still do good in your everyday life or in the community. Be a nice guy. Like, even if your entire thing is, oh no, I'm not a good person. You're not Skeletor. You're not going to sit here and yell, I am not nice at people. You're a human being. You have empathy and compassion. You can put that forth, and you can still be a dick. If you don't believe me, look at me.
Well, Jay, with that, I got one final question for you. Where can everybody find you online?
So hopefully you can find me talking Douglas Castle into starting Transville back up, which you can find on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Anchor, Google Play under Transville. It's the D&D podcast where me and a couple of other friends just bullshit, get drunk, and play D&D. You can find me on Facebook at Jay Burnz, JayBurnz. You can find me on Instagram and Snapchat at bargang_Burns. Burns again with the Z. You can find me on Twitter at Jay Burnz with a Z. Sorry about that. 253. Where all I do is bullshit with Danny Carvalho, Drew, as in Video Drew, and follow a whole lot of people that you probably shouldn't follow. And none of them are named Hitler on Twitter. Just throwing that out there. When I say you shouldn't follow them unless you're over the age of 18. They're really fun people to talk to as well. A lot of the people know where else to find me. Don't look for my OnlyFans page unless you're ready to pay me $18.50 a month. And here soon, I'm actually thinking of starting my streams back up via Streamlabs or via YouTube, wherever it might be, to like start projecting my gaming again, where I can just sit down, bullshit through a video game, and hopefully not have a heart attack when the ending theme song to this show comes on. That's where you can find me. Oh, also, sorry, you can find me running the Teams League over in Full Metal, which is going to be starting back up here soon. We're recording the championship match here soon. But every Thursday, you can also find me running Full Metal Classic over on the Full Metal Media page. You'll see my posts every Tuesday night, maybe every Wednesday. And yeah, we'll break that down. And that's a really good spot for introductory players to get your feet wet in the league and find out whether or not you have what it takes to make the cut in the leagues. So yeah, that's where you can find me. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Dave. No,
please. We need to find out where everyone can find you. And again, thank you so much for coming on the show. It was a hard fought loss, but we here at Schmoes in the North know that you're going to be back in the saddle with Necro, coming back up for the championship soon. Now, I'm going to throw it back over to Lou, who's going to introduce our next guest. Bye.
All right. Thank you very much, Jay, for your time, and also for a very interesting perspective on your match. So, and by the way, Jay, I'm really sorry. I really want to have an interview one-on-one with you because I think we can have a lot of fun. Just not this time, but that being said, I can't wait to talk to you soon. All right. So, Dave, we have, Scully. Let's hear what he says. Back to you, Dave.
Thanks, Lou, and happy birthday. I hope you're getting those extra drinks in for both of us. All right, I am sitting here with the new Fandom Teams champion, Thomas Scully. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good, man. How about you?
Oh, I'm doing great. You know, it's always exciting to get a champ, especially one who was quite as dominant as you were in this match against Necro. I'm excited to get into it.
Yeah, that was a really intense match. Fun playing with both Jay and Mark, and then especially alongside my boy Boatman. So yeah, that was a super intense match.
Yeah, and let's just jump right into it. Let's not waste any time. What were your feelings going into this match, even before you guys got on stream and started the match up?
We were feeling pretty confident. We had just come off of beating insert name here, Jacoby and Tony. We had put together a really solid performance there, and we knew that if we just kept studying and working with Coho and just working day in and day out trying to better ourselves, we knew that we would have a good shot at winning this. Our main concern was, of course, rounds 3 and 4, which neither of us had seen before. It was the filmography round and then the deep cuts round. But all the credit in the world to Coho. I mean, he made sure that we were ready. We were ready for any movie that would have came up on that deep cut wheel. Made sure that we knew our filmography stuff. Like Bowman and I would be quizzing each other or messenger day and night, trying like, this actor appeared in, this category, who is it? Things like that. So we did a good job making sure that we were prepared. All bases were covered. All sort of outcomes were identified before the match, and learning how to attack it. So yeah.
Yeah, and like right out of the gate, there was a real confidence that you guys seem to have, and clearly that comes from the studying and the chemistry. Mm-hmm. What's it been like working with Boatman on a team?
It's great. I mean, I think that out of every Fandom team in this league, we're like the most well balanced because I am very much the core geek guy, the Harry Potter, the MCU, the Marvel, the DC, the Middle Earth, things like that. And he is the Disney guy. He's the DreamWorks guy. He knows his Jurassic Park, his Rocky, all the fringe stuff that I may not be as well versed in. So we keep each other on our toes, and we quiz each other in those areas we know best, so we can better the other at the areas they know least. So it's learning something new every day with them. Like there's rarely ever a time where like we don't stump each other, and that's just how good we are at our specific strengths.
Now, looking all the way back with your history in Multiplex, you actually made your debut against Bowman. What's that going from rivals and people who played against each other to now being on a team?
Looking back on it, it was pretty crazy because exactly a year ago, I entered Multiplex and I got a match set up, and first match was against Bowman, and I knew he was a big part of the league. I knew he was an admin. He was working with Warzone and things like that. And I was like, okay, well, this guy seems like a pretty big deal, so I'll have to work extra hard to beat him. And we played, and I edged him out. And then after the match, he messages me privately, and he's like, hey, I was really impressed with your performance. You seem to really know the geek stuff really well. I know the French stuff really well. Fandom has teams, so if you want to become a team, we should look into that. And I was like, absolutely. And so last year we played our first 2 matches. We were completely dominant, ended in KO. Then we had some rough slips. We lost to D2A round 1 of the tournament last year. Kind of a strategy betting snafu, and that's where both of us had tried to improve ourselves upon. And then our second loss last year was against Coho and Jim Green and Kings of Winter, and that was just due to Coho playing a perfect strategy game. And then coming into this year, we were like, we knew we had the chemistry. We knew we worked together so well. Now it's just getting that final piece and being able to strategize how to win a championship. And again, big part of that was getting Coho as our manager. So Bowman and I, like, we've been ride or die since day one. Like since the first day we played teams, we're always helping each other out, whether if he's in a Warzone match, a big match over there, or if I'm in a Full Metal Geek match and I need some help, we're always there to help each other. So yeah, I love that man with all my heart. Proud to have won a team belt with him. So yeah.
Let's dive into that a little bit more. You talk about that missing piece being Coho. What does he do for you as a manager in this league?
He brings something to this team that Bowman and I really didn't have a whole lot of last year, and that's intense strategy. Coho is somebody who will, he's like Doctor Strange in Infinity War. He sees 14 million different ways this a certain match can go, and he strategizes for every single outcome and finds ways to attack it head on. And that's what we did for the Necro match, because we devised up a whole bunch of different scenarios where either we were up in round 1 or down in round 1, or maybe we lost the lead in round 2, or maybe we were in knockout territory in round 2, how to manage the match after every single round. That's something he does so well. And he makes sure that, and the thing I love most about him is that he instills us with confidence, but he's also realistic. However, he takes that realism and elevates it to a level where we can envision ourselves as champions. So he'll give us the best case scenarios, and he basically looks at us and tells us this is going to happen. You guys are going to be champions. You guys are going to hold these belts for a while, and we believe him. And our results in the match against Necro really showed that we have what it takes to hold that belt for a long, long time, no matter who comes and plays us. And a lot of the credit does go to Coho for just instilling us with that confidence that we need to keep going. And I like a match that I had recently. He gave me the great advice of no matter what happened in the last question, whether you hit it or missed it, or whether your opponent hit or missed it, move on, wipe it away from your memory, forget it ever even happened, and then attack the next question head on. Because the worst thing you can do is sort of linger on a question you missed, or maybe bask in the glory of you hitting it. So that's just one of many things that Coho does so well as a manager.
Let's talk a little bit about that strategy, and let's dive into the matches as a whole, because obviously that's what we're here to talk to you about. Amazing match against the Necro. So you guys start off round 1 pretty good. You guys end up being up 13-9. How does that feel going into the second round already up with that 4-point cushion?
That was about where we expected to be, up ahead by a few points, because we knew that in terms of general knowledge overall, we had the edge over Necro. We knew that both Jay and Mark had some gaps in their knowledge that we were able to take advantage of, especially in the Disney live action question. With the Muppets question about Smells Like Teen Spirit, we swept that, and both of them missed it. So after that, we were like, okay, this is where we expected to be. But we also didn't get complacent, because while 4 points is a good lead, it doesn't last forever. So we knew that we had to keep in mind that Necro had come back from deficits like that before, and we didn't want to fall victim to that again.
And then you had that cushion, but then how does it feel when round 2 starts and they get opponent's choice? And talk to me a little bit about the thoughts behind giving them Bond.
So Bond is really something that both Boatman and I attacked head on in terms of our studying. There's 24 different Bond films. So Boatman and I agreed that I would take all the earlier ones, the Connerys and the Moores, and he would take everything after 1980. So we would just divvy up the studying, and Bond was something we knew really well, and we knew that Jay's been pretty vocal in how he doesn't really like Bond, so we knew that we could use that to our advantage. But getting opponent's choice isn't exactly a walk in the park, because when you have a great team like Necro, where their base knowledge is pretty extensive, you have to be careful about what you pick, because you don't necessarily know what they've been studying. You don't know if they've been like we didn't really know if they were going to be, if they had looked at Bond right before the match, or if they were focusing on some other categories, or maybe they were focusing on Disney or DC or anything like that. So when you're playing a title match against two really good players like Jay and Mark, you have to be very careful. And Bond was just the one thing that we all agreed on, okay, we studied it. Jay doesn't like it, so let's hammer him with this. And Necro actually did fairly decent in Bond. I had an inkling that they were going to be studying Bond a little bit, but in the long run, it didn't hurt us too badly.
No, like they did really well, only missing the one, and you guys weren't able to capitalize.
Mm-hmm.
But then you guys spinning and getting MCU, you see in the match that looks like a big excitement for both of you guys.
Yeah. And it's funny because in all our team matches previously, when we've had a wheel spin in round 2, it's always been like either Disney Animation or DreamWorks, and Boatman has carried the load. This is really the first time where I've carried the load in terms of a round 2 strategy because the only time we've spun Core Geek was Middle Earth against Kings of Winter, and it didn't really go so well. But getting MCU, when we spun MCU, I'm like, all right, we have a chance to get a big lead here going into round 3 and 4, and we did really well. There was just the one Captain Marvel question that we missed, just because I've only seen Captain Marvel a couple times.
And no one can blame you for that.
Yeah. That's a pretty deep cut. And props to Tim Mercala, the question writer, for writing all those questions. Like, those were some really good MCU questions.
Oh yeah, I was really impressed. It's always interesting to see just how deep some of these fandom questions can go. But you guys really did well on your MCU round. You end this round up 21-16. Is this in your head the turning point where you start seeing yourself as a champion as you get into these latter rounds? Or are you still thinking they can come back?
I'm still thinking they can come back because, again, you have round 3, the filmography round, because that could go any number of ways. It all depends on the questions you get and the actors you get as answers. And then round 4, deep cuts, that swings an entire match just by its own. I mean, if you saw the singles title match with Rizzi and Mercala, that changed the entire landscape of the match as well. But we were still confident that if we were gonna, like, if we hit our questions and they missed a couple, we were gonna go into the 4th round with a solid lead.
Now, you talked a little bit before we started breaking down the match about preparing for these later round stuff. Without getting too much into your strategy, I'd love just to hear how you guys prepare for these filmography and these deep cut rounds.
Honestly, it just, like, I think for Bopan and I, it just came down to what our base knowledge was, like what we remember different actors in different areas of fandom. And like there's always one really tough one that like I remember throwing Bowman one that I knew was like a I forget who the actor was, but it was like a deep cut Disney live action person, and then like a DreamWorks character, and he's like, well, shit, I don't know. And then he threw one at me that was like some sort of like Disney animation character, and then like a Jurassic Park character. I'm like, well, shit, I don't know. So we play a little game of like trying to stump each other in terms of filmography. Like every question we threw at each other, we remembered because we had studied it. So when it comes to filmography, there really is no solid strategy for doing that, honestly.
Then let's go into round 4, the final round of the match. You guys get Rocky, choose to spin again, which is interesting, seeing how you were talking about how Bowman has that knowledge, but you end up getting Rocky anyway. Is that a little deflating, or how does that feel?
Well, when we got Rocky the first time, we knew that. So for the title match, some of the deep cut movies had been revealed to us ahead of time. So we had a couple that we knew like the back of our hand, and there were some other categories where we felt we'd be stronger in if we had gotten deep cuts. And Rocky was something Bowman and I hadn't done a whole lot of time on in preparation for the match because it hadn't been on the wheel for round 2. It hadn't been a prevalent category that pops up in the match. So we felt like we could take our chances with another category. It landed on Rocky, and it landed on Rocky 3, which I've said before, it's my favorite Rocky movie. It's the one I know the best. So there was a little bit of luck in there for us, I think.
We are going to have to talk after this interview because I've never met anyone who says Rocky 3 is their favorite. I'm a big Rocky 3 guy, but that's interesting.
Yeah.
We're gonna talk about that later. A lot of questions. We had 2 questions about Clubber Lang in there. Was that interesting for you, where you start seeing these questions that are all revolving around the same person, or how does that feel as you get into this round?
Well, I mean, honestly, at that point when we were up by 8, we were like, I can't speak for Bowman, but I was smelling blood in the water by then, and I knew that, okay, if we can hit a couple, if they can miss, we can end this right now. So I wasn't really thinking in terms of like who the questions were about. I was thinking about the questions in general, and I was just like, and like when they, for the first couple, the ones I knew right off the bat, I'm like, okay, it's so and so. It's like round 2, it's round 3, or something like that. And then like for that entire round, I was telling Bowman the answers, he was writing them down, because I just knew those off the bat. So I wasn't really thinking in terms of the context of the question. I was just thinking my goal was just to get it right and to end the match.
And that's exactly what you guys go out there and do. 30-16 is just a very impressive showing for any championship match, and it really solidifies you guys as champions to be looking out for anyone climbing the ladder. Speaking of climbing the ladder, is there anyone coming up right now that you would like to test your mettle against further?
Well, there is one big obvious team out there that if I don't say them, I'll be crucified by the entire admin team. It's the biggest team out there is obviously Knights of Ren. Tim Mercala, Nick Tuig. Those guys are scary. I mean, people have called them the second coming of Arkham Knights, just because, you know, Tuig's knowledge rivals that of Tim's, much like Roberts did. So they're definitely a team that will rise through the ranks most likely. But you know, I hesitate on crowning them contenders right now because people have crowned people contenders before and they've fallen. But some other teams to watch out for, obviously Ascendant with Coho and Cameron Holtzman. That's a really good team that can make a run. Schizo, Eli McKaig, Dominic Rizzi. Seeing what Eli was able to do with Dom in that singles title match was really impressive. I was really impressed with how he was able to sort of calm Rizzi down at times. I think them as a team could be really scary. You have Two Towers, Joe Farrelly, Ruben Cullen. 2 more core geek players. They remind me a lot of Necro, but Necro's been to 2 title matches, so who knows? And of course, Necro themselves. I mean, obviously they'll be back in some fashion. So there are a lot of really solid rookie teams this season that any one of them could be facing us down the line. But obviously the favorite is going to be Knights of Ren, and if they don't make it there, it'll be disappointing. And I think that if they don't end up making it there, I expect them to, but they could also slip up down the line. And Tim Mercala is probably the one guy I have not faced yet in Fandom who I really want to face. You know, he's somebody I have a lot of respect for. Him and Tuig, I love them both. Their knowledge base is phenomenal, but Tim is probably the one guy who I really want a shot at.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit more. Obviously, this was a team's title match, but you are an individual and you play elsewhere. Do you have any interest in going to be double belted, holding 2 belts? And if so, what's your path and how do you hope to pursue that?
There are a number of different paths to me getting double belted. Well, I'd say technically I am double belted right now because I am the Multiplex Sports Battlefield champion, but that division doesn't exist anymore. But I'm still the champion over there. But double belted in terms of Fandom, the path is pretty much clear. I have to beat Nick Tuig. That will be probably my greatest test yet when I play him, because the guy's 3-0. He has the highest accuracy of any Fandom player, minimum 3 matches ever. He's just a beast. He takes every opponent he's up against and turns him into Play-Doh. It's astounding what he's done. And if I beat him, I'll have a solid chance at getting to Rizzy. And I would like to face Rizzy because he's now beaten me twice in Fandom. He beat me last year in round 2 of the Summer Series, and then he knocked me out of the Gauntlets, which I attribute 100% to exhaustion because I was absolutely exhausted at the end of that Gauntlet. But in terms of Fandom, that way is set. Other divisions I could get a belt in. Full Metal Geek, they just unveiled their path to the title. I have to play 2 5-round matches in order to get a belt there, beating Jay Burnz first, then the winner of Timber Kala and Dominic Rizzi. And then in the Movie Trivia Face-Off, they have the World War Geek thing coming up. And that's another path to another potential belt. So the way is set for a lot of different scenarios for me to be double belted or more. But I'm just right now I'm just taking things one match at a time, one step at a time, not getting complacent, not getting cocky, not getting arrogant, just having the confidence in what I know and having the confidence that what I don't know I can study, so I will know it.
Well, you seem like a very confident guy, and you heard it here first. By the end of the year, Thomas Scully will be holding 4 belts around his shoulders. We are very excited to see what you're going to be doing here. And thank you so much for coming on to do this interview with me.
Absolutely, this is a great show, and I hope more Multiplex players come on. I think the whole interview process here is fantastic. You guys had great questions. So yeah, if you're a Multiplex player, come on this show. It's really good.
That's a ringing endorsement if I've ever heard one. Where can good people find you online, Thomas?
Online, you can find me on my Twitter, TCScully31. I do like sports opinions, movie opinions, things like that. Just me being myself. That's really my only social media. So yeah, if you want to get in touch with me, Facebook Messenger is probably the best way. I have that open on a daily basis because strategy talk never ends.
Well, that's the words of a true champion. I'm not going to tell you where to find me yet. You'll hear that at the end of the show. Let's send it back over to Lou.
Very much for both your time, and we really appreciate, like I said. Okay, so look, on to the future. We got next week 2 great little things for you all. First off, I'm going to be co-hosting with Coho the match analysis, and also we have a really, really interesting legacy for you. I'm not going to say who it is, but we got someone really interesting. All right, well, thank you very much again. Don't forget to subscribe to this YouTube channel. We're getting better. We're almost at 47% of people not subscribed watching the video, so you're doing your part. Thank you very much. And also, don't forget to go on our Facebook, Schmoes of the North, subscribe, and also, if you're new to Multiplex, you never know, subscribe to Multiplex if you can. All right, you have a good night, I mean.